Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're walking through how I built this dynamic learning and development monthly performance dashboard in Microsoft Excel. Everything you see here updates automatically when I select a month from the drop-down, and we're going to build this step by step. We start with the front end. So I'm setting up the dashboard layout as I typically do, designating the header area. I've divided the dashboard into two main sections. On the left, I'm going to create a narrow two-column panel that will eventually hold 6 key KPIs. On the right, I'm leaving a wider area for the charts, 4 columns for the top row of pie charts, and 2 columns below for the line charts. Next, I create the drop down for the month, that which we see at the top right side of the dashboard. I select the cell, I format the cell, make it white, fill color, and then I select it, and then I click data validation, I go to list, and then I select the list of the months which are already in the back end data. We will still get to this, and I make sure that the list extends from January to December, and that is going to form the selection for the drop down. Before I build the real KPIs, I'm putting in some placeholder blocks, just simple shapes and shaded cells to visualize spacing. So I do this off camera, and then you're going to see the shapes I'm going to put in for the left panel. So these shapes are going to help me visualize the spacing, and it helps me to see how the metrics will sit on the page before I start linking the formulas. Now let's jump to the backend sheet. This is where all the logic lives. I'm started with a preliminary table that contains the raw monthly metrics: number of trainings, attendees, cost, total hours, total participants. These come from the training catalog and the attendance data, and I'll still show you what that looks like soon. Now I'm setting up the index area, which is that area in light pink from rows 20 to 22. This area I would have, because this is a performance dashboard, typically I set it above the data set, not below it. But because I know that this is a performance dashboard for just 1 year, I can confidently leave out 12 months, and I know it's not going to extend into 12 months, because the risk of setting it up below the data set is that the data will run into it, but that risk doesn't exist since this is a 1 year performance report. Is the data that is selected in the drop down, that is the month. I make reference to it in cell A20, and then I'm using VLOOKUP to pull the row for the selected month. So I have here selected September 26, 2026, and then with the use of VLOOKUP, I can get the data for what the actual training number is, actual number of trainings, training costs for the month of September. I can get that data from the main table. So this lookup row becomes a single source of truth for the dashboard, and every KPI and every chart is going to reference this row. So this is what the training catalog looks like. You can see there is the training list, there is the target audience, there's the format of the training, duration of the training, training course, and then added on number of participants per training, total training cost, total hours of training. And now we are enriching this data. I'm basically using randomized data because these are dummy numbers. So that's why I'm using rand between to randomize the numbers, just to give me a data set that I can build this performance dashboard with. So with that randomized data, I then derive this calculation outlay. So the training catalog has the list of all the trainings, and then the calculation table would then aggregate all that data by month. That's why you see that I'm putting in the live data set in the training catalog, and then I will use aggregation. I will aggregate it using SUMIFS and count it to then show that data by month. Like you can see over here, it's a complex SUMIFS formula, but I'm pausing and I zoomed in so that you can get a sense of what it looks like. This is actual data transformation work, which is not so much the focus. I wanted this tutorial to focus on the visualization versus the data transformation. But if there are any questions on the formulas I use to aggregate the training catalog by month, please let me know in the comment section, and I can address that or in a subsequent video or just in the comments. I'm also going to enrich the table with derivative columns, for example, versus previous month, using formulas like current minus previous divided by previous, cost per participant using cost divided by attendees, cost per training hour using costs divided by hours. Actual versus target metrics for attendees, hours, and cost. And these are the additional columns we are seeing from columns J onwards. I'm creating the line charts I have, and the line chart shows the entire data for all the months versus the rest of the dashboard that shows the data by month. So this one is not connected to the index row at all. It's just reading from the data that is in the main table, the main calculation table. And I'm formatting those line charts as well, just highlighting them so that they look nice. I'm going to bring in the data, the axis, I keep mixing it up, the primary, major, vertical lines, so that it has this nice and cool look. And then I formatted the chart title to Sego UI, use Sego UI font to give it a very clean feel. I removed the legends don't, and then the data labels. I brought in the data labels because when the line chart came in, it came in showing 1, 2, 3, and then I used the chart setting to bring in the labels, which are the months in the year, January to December. I just connected it to the to column A that has that information. So I repeat the same process for training hours. Again, it's a full year trend. Once formatted, I just place it in the section that is below where the pie charts will be. So back to the back end. Now I'm creating the data for the pie charts. The pie charts are going to show actual versus target. So I have in that index row section from row 20 downwards, I have indicated the four KPIs I'm going to represent on the pie chart. That's the training hours versus targets, training costs versus targets, percentage online training, and training attendees versus targets. I insert new columns to account for them, and then I pull the actual versus target information, just making direct references from the lookup row on row 20. And then I do that one after the other for each one of the KPIs, and I insert the donut charts. I link each chart to the lookup row so that when the month changes, the chart slices update automatically. So I'm now creating the pie chart, and then I duplicate one pie chart 4 times. I bring in a data label. The data label is going to be center, but I end up deciding against using the data label because it changes position every time I change a month. And then I believe I use a regular text box and I reference it to that changing data so that the position of the data label remains the same every time I change the month. I also change the chart title to the title of the KPI, which is attendees versus targets for this example. I then go on ahead to update the design, the color scheme for the pie chart so that it's aligned with the purple color scheme we're going with for this dashboard. And then I replicate one copy of the optimized pie chart in 4 places, well, in 3 places. And then I update the chart data for each one of them to match the KPIs. This is a way I make sure the chart design stays consistent across the 4 different pie charts. And I just replicated one of the text boxes already on the dashboard, and formatting it, centering it, and then just referencing the data points that I want to be visible, which is the percentage completion, the percentage actual, into each one of those text boxes. And then I bring back the formatting because anytime you do that referencing action, it causes you to lose your formatting. Now I'm going back to the back end because I want to tidy up the metric numbers that will show in the left panel. And I'm using custom formatting that would make sure anytime the actual versus target, the percentage numbers, anytime it's positive, it shows green. And anytime it's negative, it shows red. I have a blog post on custom formatting on 101excelhacks.co. It's hack 8, I believe. And I will still link it here in the description of this video for further reference. But that's what I'm doing. I'm also bringing in up and down arrow, which is I brought those in from insert symbol, the up or down arrow. And well, basically I copied the symbols and then I used the symbols to create a formula where if it is negative, bring in the upward facing arrow, and if it's positive, bring in the upward facing arrow, and if it's negative, bring in the downward facing arrow. Now I'm returning to the left panel. I'm going to remove the placeholder box, and I'm going to start building the real KPI cards directly into the cells. So recall at the beginning, I had used shapes, square shapes to create placeholders, but now I'm going to build the real KPI cards, and I'm building them inside the cells, which is going to make it easier to update the values, because going the text box route requires using a lot of shapes on the worksheets and having to maintain those shapes. Meanwhile, when you're working in a cell, it's much easier to control all of them at the same time and things like that. So like I always do, I start with the first one, I make it perfect, and then I replicate it to the other cells. And I'm bringing in the metric values, the KPI values, which I've already computed on row 20, which is our lookup row. I'm referencing all of them to row 20 so that anytime the month changes, the data in those cells, the KPI panel cells, will change automatically to reflect the month change. And I bring in, I update the format as needed to make it white. I'm using the Naira sign, but you can always use the dollar sign or any other currencies sign for the KPIs that relate to costs. Those are the trading costs and cost per participant. I also add the versus last month's percentage, and then the conditional formatting. Well, the custom formatting that has already been put in place. Once you reference the cell from the back end, it comes in automatically, which is a really nice improvement, because I know in older versions of Microsoft Excel, you would have had to referencing a cell. It was not enough. You have to bring in that formatting into the cell you're using. But I think that's the beauty of custom formatting. It carries over it carries over the formatting to any cell it is referenced in. And that's essentially it. I just remove the placeholder cells, bring the pie charts and line charts downward so that they align with the created KPI cells. I test the combo box. So I sense check all the information, all the new KPI panels by testing the combo box, changing the months to make sure that the data is changing every time I change the month. I also bring in the dashboard title, and then the last thing I do is I want a movable marker on each of the line charts, such that because the line charts show the data for all the months, I want a visual signal on the line charts that makes it clear what month is in focus when a month is selected. So I go to the back end and I add 2 more columns, which are the ones that are mapped in. I color the whole column yellow. And the idea of those columns is that they have a formula that will return NA when the current month is not, when we are looking at a month that is not in focus, and you will return the actual month number for the month in focus. I will type that formula out on the screen so you can see it. And then when the new column is created, I then add that new column to the line charts. It can be fiddly to do it, add a new series to an existing line chart. But if you're struggling with it, you can just create a new line chart altogether. But there's a way you can do it from the chat options. I end up, as you see, I think I go the route of just recreating the charts afresh, which makes it easier to control all the data points I need to control. And once I make this update to the 2 columns, the dashboard is complete. So that's it. That is the full build from raw training catalog data to in an interactive learning and development performance dashboard. A link to this template will be available in the video description. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next 101 Excel Hacks YouTube video. Bye for now.